we received a case about a stolen car. And we reached out to the young person, and he pretty quickly took responsibility for it, and was very open to meeting with his victim and making it right, and explained that he was really poor, but he was willing to get a job and try to figure out, how to do right by the victim. So we reached out to the victim, and the victim was extremely unhappy that the case had been diverted. She actually knew a little bit about diversion because she worked for a law enforcement type entity, and was adamant that she had been out of pocket $4,000 in costs because of this car, and wanted to see $4,000. And so in meeting with the young person and his family, his mother is undocumented, working multiple jobs. They were living in the most in the kinds of poverty that we just shouldn't have in the United States, with so many other people's children living with them just to have a place to eat. And I knew that this mother and this young man were not coming up with $4,000. And so the person I was training at the time asked me, so are we going to send the case back? Because there's no way this woman's getting what she wants. So I go back to her and I say, would you have any interest in doing this even if $4,000 might not be the outcome? Is there some other reason to do this? And she'd brought a friend with her that day, and he said, I would really love for you to move forward. And she said, I would just want to meet with this kid and tell him that what he did wasn't okay. And her friend said, I really, really like to meet with this young man too. And so on the day of the conference, it was very powerful. Her supporter, the person who had come with her, at one point, as the youth who'd stolen the car couldn't remember what color the car was, and it became evident that he'd stolen many cars, and the victim is getting angrier and angrier, and you're never going to learn your lesson. And at this point, her friend leans in and he says, I know you. And my heart stopped, because I was like, oh, we usually research these things better, and I had no idea there was a pre-existing relationship between these two parties. And he says, I know you because I used to be you. And he proceeds to tell the most powerful story about how he himself got caught up in stealing cars, and it derailed his life, and how he got his life back on track. And it was as if the rest of the room disappeared, and this young man and this man who turned his life around engage in a dialogue about how does one turn one's life around. And he says, you have to stop hanging out with your homies in the way that you used to, but don't cut them out of your heart. Just don't include them in every aspect of your life. So you show up for the baptism, but you don't stay for the after party, right? And you always say, I got to get to work, and they respect that. So what makes you happy? What do you believe in, about yourself? Or what are you good at? And the kid puffs up and he says, I'm a really good artist. And his mother starts laughing. And she says, you can't pay this woman back $4,000 with your art. And just then the victim jumps in and she says, oh, yes, he can. Yes, he can, actually. She was so moved by this dialogue, right, that she says, if he paints me a Tinkerbell as tall as I am, she's about 5 feet tall, as tall as I am, I'll forgive all the debt. And we're all looking at each other like, a Tinkerbell? I'm sorry, did she say Tinkerbell? So I start taking notes, and she's describing the exact Tinkerbell and what color the Tinkerbell needed to be. And it had to be an old school one without too much cleavage, so she's very particular about the Tinkerbell. And the kid is really excited, but he's also like, I don't know how I would canvas and what she's describing. And I'm like, we'll find you a community artist person who will help you with this. And so I was thinking of my friend Evan, who I knew would definitely be interested in doing this. And so ultimately the young man does paint this. He just, within a few weeks, he got a job, he raised enough money for all the art supplies. He wanted to do it himself. Painted the most amazing rendition of Tinkerbell on canvas, and the victim asked for him to bring it to her home and help him install it, And then he ended up getting involved with other community art projects, and actually getting involved with the program at Community Works, where he had been involved in this case, and just helping out other kids who'd gotten in trouble. So his life turned around completely, and he stayed out of trouble consistently after that. And the Tinkerbell was really beautiful. But I think what's really, when people ask what do victims want, it's different in every case. And I always think you never know, it might be Tinkerbell. Like, you have no idea what is going to leave a crime victim satisfied. So Some people might say, oh, that's soft on crime, he stole a car and he gets to paint something. But if that's what the victim wanted and that's what keeps him out of trouble for the rest of his life, then we should be really happy about Tinkerbell.
Now curbing conflicts in high school. Hari Srinivasan looks at a new approach to discipline that replaces suspensions with conversations.
In Aurora, Colorado, Principal Matthew Willis welcomes the recent changes at Hinckley High School, where 75% of the 2,000-plus students qualify for free and reduced meals. Willis says student fights are down and respect among classmates is up.
Last year we had a 48% reduction in out-of-school suspensions. When it comes to physical altercations between students, in 2007-8 we had approximately 263 physical altercations, and so far for this year we've only had 31 physical altercations.
So good morning, thank you for being here.
The turnaround, he says, began when Hinckley High started using a form of discipline called restorative justice.
Every single year over the last 3 full years that we've been doing restorative justice, you see significant declines in defiance, disobedience, and use of profanity.
This is called a talking circle, so when we have problems in the school, we come together and talk about it.
Now, when a minor altercation does occur, students, parents, and the dean face each other in a restorative circle.
Restorative is that you bring back the kids, if it's student with student, or if it's student with staff, you restore the relationship. So if there's conflict or wrongdoing, we come together and we talk about it and we try to heal the harm that was caused from the incident. So thank you for everything you said so far, and now this is...
Dean of Students Bonnie Martinez facilitates.
We speak openly and honestly, but with respect.
On the day we visited, 2 sophomore girls caught up in a physical fight were brought to a circle with their parents instead of being suspended.
So this is our talking stick, so who's ever holding this is the ones talking and everyone else is listening. You say what happened from your point of view, and you say what happened from your point of view. And sometimes we don't always agree on all the facts or whatever.
She called me the B word, and then we just started fighting.
That's kind of a layer of you. She say to be honest, and I think you have to be honest. I was here, and she come walking through me, and so she started again.
Students are asked to talk about the harm their actions may have caused, and Martinez requires everyone to sign an agreement.
What do you take responsibility for? What do you think we could do to heal the harm that was caused?
I'm sorry for having these problems that we've been having, and I don't want it to happen again.
Okay, you're not going to be enemies, but you're going to treat others with respect. That, to some people, may be viewed as a soft discipline, especially if you look at the Western culture. You know, we're about war and violence. We're not about peace and harmony. But however, for those girls to come together and for their families to come together and talk about it and to really, you know, to express truly what happened, how did it affect me and others, what am I responsible for and how do I solve it, that's deeper than just writing up paperwork and one person goes their way and the other person goes their way and nothing was ever communicated.
At Hinckley, the restorative justice circles go beyond the dean's office. Peer mentoring classes use role-playing to teach students how to conduct circles on their own.
How does it make you feel?
It pisses me off that he's spreading rumors about me, but I didn't do nothing big.
Sophomore Nice Smith thinks the circles bring better results than suspension.
It used to be like you just get sent home for 5 days, but that doesn't resolve nothing. You just sit there and you come back with the same anger.
When teachers don't resolve the harm by doing restorative justice, then that conflict is always there. And usually what will happen is kids will just stay angry. And I don't like that teacher, and so I don't care what you say, and they'll just disrupt.
Colorado's legislature eliminated zero tolerance in schools in 2012.
The ideas of traditional discipline don't exist anymore. When in the old days, when a student or a kid got into trouble, we would spank them. And we moved away from spanking because it no longer met the values of our society. The same is true with a traditional discipline where it's all about punishment. It's not about restoring relationships. It's not about taking responsibility for your actions. It's about punishment. And so that no longer fits the society of our future. What fits the society of our future is people coming together and working and solving problems together.
Gracias. Mucho gusto, gracias.
And while Colorado is now ahead of the national movement, the state actually played a role in the making of zero-tolerance policies after the 1999 shootings at Columbine High School.
Anytime you're in a school, you've got all these stakeholders.
Sarah Park is the Director of Education for the Denver Foundation, one of the sponsors of Hinckley's Restorative Justice program.
In Colorado, our zero-tolerance law was really in response to Columbine. And we were scared. We were all heartbroken. We were terrified, and we wanted to make sure kids were safe. And so we thought, well, let's do this. Let's make clear that this is non-negotiable. And that's really where the intention around zero tolerance came from. Unfortunately, the way it played out was in more negative educational outcomes. You can't learn if you're not there. And they also, there's studies linking suspension to incarcerations, and it's much more likely that a kid is suspended and repeatedly suspended that they'll end up in jail.
My name is Megan Peters, and I'm the co-owner of the Tall and Small Cafe in Antigonish. We opened 12 years ago. We just had our anniversary. It's definitely a work of passion and love, and we definitely get that back from the community for sure. After my husband and I had gone on a rare vacation to Halifax for a night, we left the cafe in some very capable hands. The day that we got back, we discovered that there was some money missing. We checked on our cameras and we discovered that we were broken into and robbed.
Last year, I honestly don't remember everything about it. I was drinking and I ended up just walking by the cafe and slipping through the window. I don't know what exactly was going through my head. I never thought about doing anything like that before, or I never thought I would ever do something like that. It was just a stupid night when I was 21 years old and just could have really ruined the rest of my life. It's awful.
My first reaction to watching the video was I was angry and disgusted and hurt. There was a lot of backlash from the community. People were up in arms about it.
It's such a community place where everyone gathers and spends lots of time, and everyone kind of feels like, you know, it's theirs a little bit. So when this happened, everyone felt like it was happening to them. So.
We read a lot of posts on different social media sites that were just terrible, and understandably, but some of the things were just completely unnecessary. Most of it was completely unnecessary. So we posted a little post on Facebook and just said, you know, please remember that this is a person and try and treat her kindly. And so I spoke to Adam Merchant and I said, Adam, like, if there's any way I could meet this woman, I think it would make me feel a lot better about the situation. So Adam, Constable Merchant, I should call him, went and spoke with the Crown, and the Crown called me and they assessed the situation and said, you know, there is something called Restorative Justice, and it is a program that could possibly be available to you. So they spoke with Carolyn and she was willing to do it, and so it went from there. The person who was harmed gets to decide kind of what they, within reason of course, what they think that would be a good thing for the person to do. So we decided to have a community dinner, and Carolyn and I cooked for over 130 people. It was a really positive experience, and the community got to see that she's actually an amazing person and that she just made a mistake, and kind of restore that hurt that happened within the community as well.
Yeah, I went to the community dinner that they put on, and I met her and got to know her a little bit. And so, yeah, I think that was important for the community to move on.
It's not easier. It's not a get out of jail free card. It's scary, and it shows me the impact that I really had on a real person and a real community and a real family, rather than just never putting a face to it. And so it's not easier, it's just better for everyone. Had things gone differently and I had gone down the regular path of going through the legal system and everything, I never would have been able to come out of the dark place or a negative place. I would have probably spiraled further down in my own mental health, and I can't even imagine how different things would be right now. Yeah, I mean, for me, I cherish this relationship now. Megan's been, she's a real role model. She's the type of person that I wish that I can be and I strive for, and just a great person. So, yeah.
And I admire Carolyn's courage and her willingness to make things right. And this is a hard thing to do. Very courageous.